Hello everyone and welcome back to another single button guide. Today we're going to talk about the balanced druid, which is a very requested video. In this video we're going to do, as always, talking about first the stats, the talents, rotation, and we're going to end it with a gameplay video. In case you want the talents I'm using, the UI I'm using, so you can just like copy it and import it directly into your own game, you will find all that on my Discord. There's like a room for each of the specs I've made. So far I've made 16 specs, and of course the balanced druid is going to be number 17 in there. But yeah, you can go there in case you want to like be able to export the talents directly in, or even the UI, and so on. When you're using the single button assistant, which is the new spell you can see here that everyone has, which is automatically using your using your rotation by just pressing this button here, you're of course getting punished with a 25% longer global cooldown. A lot of smart people have done calculations on how much damage you actually lose from using this button here, and it's about 16%. So when you're using the single button assistant against someone who's using the perfect rotation for balanced druid, you're going to be doing about like 16% less damage than him or her. But of course, if you're against someone who doesn't know the rotation very well, you are likely going to do more damage than them. I know it's a bit scary, but it's fun. I love this button here, and I'm like using it for all my classes and specs now. I just love this button. But okay, so that's basically the video. I'm gonna try make it shorter than 1 hour, but I cannot promise it, since it's my goal to try and make this video shorter than 1 hour. So let's get into it. So regarding stats, first of all, we have, you can see in the top here, there's one called SBA, which is the single button assistant, and then we also got the meta stats. I'm going to start talking about the SBA, and then we're going to talk about the meta after. So what I recommend for this build here I'm showing here and using the single button assistant is always going with intellect. Of course, you're using intellect on all your items, but what I actually mean is go with the highest eye level. If you just try always to go with the highest eye level, you should be pretty safe, because intellect scales so good with all your abilities that no matter what, you should always be good. Just go with the highest eye level and you should be safe. In case you get two items that has the same eye level, or is in the same tier of level, champion items, mythic items, hero items, stuff like that, then of course we're going to look at the secondary stats. With the single button assistant, I highly recommend going with haste, where the meta is going with mastery. So if we go in here and look at my character here, we can see here what haste does is increase attack speed, spell casting speed, and energy regeneration. So basically what haste is going to help us with is, first of all, very importantly, if you remember, as I told you, when we're using the single button assistant, it punishes us with a global cooldown that is 25% longer. A default global cooldown is 1.5 seconds. But with this one here, we are having a global cooldown on 1.8. The more haste we have, it also reduces the global cooldown. So basically, by having more haste, we can actually make the global cooldown even faster, which can help the entire single button assistant rotation be more smooth. That's why I usually always tell that haste is the most important, unless haste is a really bad stat for the spec we're playing. But in this case here, you can see it's actually, for the meta, it's the second best secondary stats. So that is why for this single button assistant, we're going to swap around haste and mastery, because we really want like a more smooth rotation for the balanced druid. And it also makes your ticks, like your Moonfire, Sunfire, it's going to make them tick even faster. It's going to give you even faster energy. It's just going to make the entire rotation faster and more smooth with single button assistant. Secondly, I recommend with this build here that we go for mastery. Why mastery? So mastery is quite powerful, which of course is why the meta is going with it. What mastery basically does is, we can see here, so your nature spells deal 50% increased damage. Your arcane spells deal 15% more damage. So both nature and arcane deal 50% more damage. And I do have a mastery on 15, so that's why it's 15. The more percent I have in mastery, the more damage I deal passively with all my nature and arcane spells, which is those two kind of spells we are spamming. But increased damage an additional 7.5 if the target is affected by Sunfire, and additionally 7.5 again if also Moonfire. So basically, if you have Moonfire and Sunfire on the target as well, it's going to be 7.5 plus 7.5, and then of course 15% as well, depending on what type of spell you're using. So you can see Mastery is just going to make all our spells just deal more damage, which is quite strong, like quite good. So yeah, Mastery. So it's kind of up to you. If you want to go with Haste or you want to go with Mastery, you'll decide. But me personally, using a single button system, I would go with Haste. But of course, if I can get an item with Haste and Mastery in one item, that would be good soup. Then next off, we're going to go with Versatility. Versatility just flat out increases your damage. You can see I have 8% Versatility, which means I deal 8% more damage. Very nice. But also it decreases the damage we take by 4%, which is going to make us very more tanky, bulky, which is quite nice for some content where you take a lot of damage maybe. Also, it also increases damage and healing done. So that also means you're also going to be doing more healing in case you need to cast a regrow or something like that. We also have the last stat as Critical Strike, which is just making some of your, all your spells have a bigger chance of doing double damage, when you do crits where the numbers are big. And for Balanced Druid, it's not that needed because we have a lot of dots, we have a lot of fast spells, and we actually rather having we rather want to have all our spells just deal more damage than be reliable on crits. Other specs like Destruction Warlock and Elemental Shamans, they love crit, but Balanced Druid, we don't love crit. So again, my recommendation would be go with the highest eye level, go with Haste, then Mastery, Versatility, and Crit. That's it. Let's go to the talents. So a little short introduction to the talents. We basically have two talents in this video here. We have a Dungeon talent, which is basically a talent that you would be using for any content in the game, except raids, and then we have a raid talent here. The big change is that the Dungeon, basically anything else, is using Alone's Chosen, and the raid one is using Keeper of the Grove. Mainly because it just has a lot more stuff that increases the damage by a single target. We're also using, of course, the Force of Nature together with Dream Surge and the Harmony of Grove. So this build here, I was able on a single target dummy, the dummy that is standing over there, the single target one over there, I was able to do the double DPS amount with this build here on a single target dummy. So really, if you go into a raid, I recommend using this build. This is the meta build. This is the standard meta build for raid that most, I think it was 47% of all Balanced Druid who raids is using this build here. So I know it would sound way cooler if I was I have made a custom build for you, which is so good for you, but no, we just need to use this build here. This is the meta build that everyone should use for raid. I mean, of course, some people might have something different, but again, 47% of Balanced Druid in raids are using this build here. So when you raid, use this. For dungeons, it was 20% of Balanced Druid is using this build here. I have changed I have changed a little thing. Actually, the only thing I changed was I changed, instead of using Renewal, which is a healing spell that we have to manually use, I took the one that is automatically used, because I felt like we had a bit too many buttons down here, and since it is a single button spec, I preferred having less spells, so I removed and took a passive healing instead of a manual one. But the cool thing about this passive is that it heals you every 30 seconds instead of this one here that has a 1.5 minute cooldown. But yeah, but this build here is the main meta build, well, at least for 20% of all Balanced Druid that uses this build here. So again, we have the meta build for raids, which is this one here, and we have the meta build for dungeon, which is this one here. And keep in mind, the raid build is only for raids. This one here is for anything else. Questing, open world, delves, you name it. In this video, we're going to mainly talk about this build here because most people who watches my videos, they do dungeons, delves, open world content, stuff like that. Raid, there is of course a lot of people in WoW that raids, but it is the small, PvP is definitely the smallest percentage of players. Then we have raid, which is the second smallest one, and then anything else, if we put that into one big soup, is the bigger audience. Especially Mythic Dungeons is really the biggest thing, which of course this build is also totally doable. You can totally use this build in Mythic Dungeons as well, since this is the meta dungeon build, except I changed this one here. But else, it's the meta dungeon build. So yeah, but I'm going to break this into 3 pieces in this video. We're going to talk first about the Druid tree here on the left side. We're going to talk about Elune's Chosen, and then the balance tree. So if you don't want to really know anything about like too much about this talent here, you can skip directly over to the rotation part in the video. You can see below there's like a timestamps, so you can just jump directly over to rotation. Because I mean, technically you don't need to know any of this because it will automatically be used by your single button rotation. You don't actually need to know any of this. But in case you want to know all about this and what is actually happening in the background and why is this happening and why is this happening, then stay and we're going to talk about the talents now. So we're going to start at the left side here, the Druid side here. Most of these things is passives, crowd control, self-healing, like utilities. Of course, we have Starfire, which is one of our main rotation abilities to actually deal damage and generate astral power. Then we have Star Search, which is another main damage ability, which is using the astral power that we get from Starfire and Wrath. We of course have Moonkin form, which increases our spell damage and armor, which is our main form we're going to be in when we are casting spells. We also have Sunfire, which is our number 2 dot, that is also being used in the single button rotation, also generates astral power. And of course, because of our mastery, we deal more damage to the target when they both have Sunfire on and Moonfire. So that's why it's very important that we always keep Sunfire and Moonfire up 100%, because then we deal more damage to them. But don't worry about it, that's why we play with the single button rotation. It's automatically using it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. We also have stuff like 6% more damage and healing, 5 more yards for your spells. So you can cast spells up to 45 yards, which is pretty cool. Most people, they play with this spell here called Renewal, which is a cooldown you can use to heal yourself. But because we're using single button assistant, I kind of like to get passive stuff. So I have taken instead Asena's Renewal, which is just when a hit deals more than 12% of your maximum health, instantly heal 10% of your health. And it can happen every 30 seconds. So I just feel like it's a nice one that can like just passively, but it's up to you if you want to switch back to the other one. But I just like to have this little save one that can happen every 30 seconds, which is I find pretty nice. We also have Remove Corruption, which can remove curses and poisons. In dungeon, especially in delves, since this build here is built for that, it's nice to be able to remove this because you can have some curses and poisons which really kills you. And in dungeons nowadays, people actually look when, for example, you have like a damage meter like this where we have damage and healing. Most people actually also have one, for example, called Interrupt and what is called cleans or removal of, like, you know, I think it's called removal, dispels and stuff like that. So they also want to see like, have anyone actually been removing curses and poisons effects. So even if you do this and help you heal out and stuff like that, it's actually noticed a lot. So just like a little recommendation. Beside of that, we also have a Fluid form, which is automatically going into Moonkin form when you cast Wrath Starfire. So Wrath Starfire shift you into Moonkin form if known. It's just like a nice one whenever you use like a spell for that school. That means you don't have to actually keybind spells. You don't have to keybind spells that is actually going, like, you don't need to put down Moonkin form. You just have to have Wrath down because Wrath is automatically putting you into Moonkin form. Stuff like that. It's just like a little nice go-to. You don't technically need it, but it's just like a really nice, and you can very easily macro down, for example, Mangle to go into like Bear form and so on. We also have Nature's Vigil, which is a great cooldown. When you're using it, all single target damage also heals a nearby friendly target for 20% of all the damage done. So when you use it, you're basically going to be healing everyone around you, which is quite strong. And you can see everyone is taking a lot of damage now. Use it and help out the healer with making more heals. We also have an AoE stun, pushback, not a stun, but pushback that can help the healers. Not the healers, but the interrupt. Like, imagine you have 5 mobs in front of you, you use Typhoon, you push them all, and now they stop casting. We also have Ursul's Vortex, which is very important because sometimes when, for example, you're using Fury of Elune, which is one of our main damage abilities, you kind of want them all to stay together to deal most damage to them. So Vortex can actually help, like, it can help pulling them all together, like into one like group. They would like be pulled in and cannot leave their rear, because when they run out, they would be pulled back again. So this can help you like getting them together and actually deal more damage. In case you don't have a Death Knight that grips them to them, it can help keeping them in position in case you want. We also have Innovate, which you can cast on your healer in case they need healing. We also have Circle of Heavens, which gives 5% more magic damage, and also Recurrence Teaching, which gives Moonkin Form more mastery. And I mean, as we talked about in the stats section, we love mastery. We also have Well-Honed Instinct, so when you fall below 40% health, you cast Frenzied Regeneration every 120 seconds. So every 2 minutes, whenever you go down below 40% health, it will automatically use the self-healing that you have in bear form here, which heals, you can see, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. So it's nice just to get 4 million HP back in passively. So that's the most noticeably things from this tree here. There's nothing, again, as you can see, there's nothing big. It's more just some standard spells we use in the rotation, our dodge, some more range, some more damage, some more stats, another AoE stun, you can use for interruption. We're going to talk about that in the rotation, improving bar skin, movement speed. Yeah, increase Moonfire and Sunfire damage by 10. It's like that. So again, left side, not that important, but whatever we have taken here is what you need. I would say you need what we have here. This is the maximum you can get from damage over here. Of course, the raid one is a bit differently. The raid one, you don't have Typhoon, you don't have, for example, Incapacitating Roar, because you don't need those stuns. Those stuns are more important in Dungeon and Delves and open world stuff. When you're running the other one with Rage, you take something like Forest Walk, which makes you run faster. It could be anything else, but yeah. But yeah, that's the left side talents. Let's go to the hero talents in the middle. So when talking about the hero talents in the middle, we of course have Elune's Chosen, which is a spec that is very reliable on a Fury of Elune. Of course, you cannot play the spec here if you don't have Fury of Elune. As you can see, you have 4 spells here that is complaining if you don't have that one here. So it's a very, very Fury of Elune heavy spec. So what is the spec about? In this spec here, I'm going to read all of them because to try help you understand what is happening in the background. So, Boundless Moon Knight. Fury of Elune now ends with a flash of energy, blasting nearby enemies for 500k astral damage. Very nice. So, of course, when you're playing with Fury of Elune, that's the effect. So now when it's done, it will flash out, explode, and deal a lot of damage. You could also play with New Moon, and then of course it would have another effect. You can see here on the Fury of Elune, there's another effect where New Moon and Half Moon call down 1 minor moon, and Full Moon call down 2 minor moons. That deals more damage. But we don't play with the moon, so we don't have to think about that. Then we have also Lunar Insect. Moonfire deals additional 20 damage, which is nice. Enemies damaged by Full Moon or Fury of Elune takes 6% increased damage from you for 6 seconds. Very nice. So in our case, only Fury of Elune. And then we also have the Light of Elune. Moonfire damage has a chance to call down a Fury of Elune to follow your target for 3 seconds. And of course then we have Fury of Elune, which is the same one as this one here, but it's a lighter version of it, because you can see this one here deals 800k or 8 seconds. This one here deals 300k or 3 seconds, and also still generate astral power. So it's just nice that every time Moonfire damage, it has a chance to actually call down a freaking Fury of Elune, which is quite nice. Then we also have the Eternal Moon, which further increases the power of Boundless Moonlight, which was this one up here at the top. So now, Fury of Elune, the flash of energy, now generates 6 astral power, and its damage is increased by 50. So now, instead of only dealing whatever damage it has up here, it's increased by 50. And if you play with the Full Moon build, New Moon and Half Moon now also call down 1 minor moon. So, but again, we're not playing with the moon, we're playing with Fury of Elune. Then we also have Moonfire and Starfire generate 2 additional astral power. Very nice. Each non-arcane damaging ability you use increases the damage of your next arcane damaging ability by 3%, stacking up to 3 times. So technically, if you cast the 3 Wrath spells, your next Moonfire, your next Starfire, Star Surge would deal actually 9% more damage, which is very nice, just passively to have. We also have Starfire deals 160% increased damage to its primary target, but no longer trigger Solar Eclipse. And in case you don't know what Solar Eclipse is, so as you can see over here in the top of the balance tree, we have Eclipse here. Casting 2 Starfire empower Wrath for 15 seconds. Casting 2 Wrath empower Starfire. So basically, if we cast 2 Wrath, we're getting the one called Eclipse Lunar, which is this one here it talks about. Now it's not going to get like... So what happens if you cast 2 Wrath, then you're getting Arcane Spells deals 50% increased damage, and its damage of Starfire deals to nearby enemies is increased by 60. 60, yeah. So you can see now if I cast 2 Wrath, we'll see here. There we go. Now it has this effect on. Usually then, if then I cast the 2 Starfires, which is this one here, Starfire, it would give us nature damage deals 50% additional damage, and Wrath damage is increased by 60. So basically they just like keep increasing each other, just like, you know, all days Moonkin balance to it. Like, you know, they keep like increasing each other's like Wrath and Starfire. But now, instead, Starfire deals so much damage that it now, because it gets like, basically what you're doing is you are making Starfire become a very strong single target ability, since it now deals 160% increased damage to the primary target, but it doesn't trigger the effect of making Wrath even stronger, which also synergies very well with Warrior of Elune, because then your next 3 Starfires are instant cast and generate 30% increased power. So it's just like another way of getting a nuke ability, basically like a chaos ball from Destruction Warlock. It's just super powerful. Compared to the other one, you can choose one. This one here is just like is a lot of powerful, which is also why you're gonna see in the rotation that it's using quite a lot of like Starfires, because Starfire deal almost 400k damage, where Wrath only deals 200k damage. So yeah. Beside of that, we have Bear form and Moonkin form reduces arcane damage taken by 6 and all other magic damage taken by 3. We also have using Wild Charge while in Bear form or Moonkin form incurs a 3-second shorter cooldown. So basically when you use, you know, this one here, the jumping back, it will just make it 3-second cooldown faster. And lastly, we have Lunation. Your arcane abilities reduce the cooldown of Fury of Elune by 2 seconds, and the cooldown of New Moon on Half Moon and Full Moon by 1 second. So whenever you use arcane spells in your rotation, which of course is automatically happening, it's reducing the cooldown of Fury of Elune by 2 seconds, which is quite nice. So Fury of Elune normally has a cooldown of 45 seconds, but because we are spamming so many like arcane abilities, it's gonna go down way faster. But I hope that's to you. Like, I hope you understand like what this in the middle here does. It's just a very like increases your arcane spells, and it just makes your Fury of Elune a monster as well with the extra explosion it has in the end of it. So yeah. Now to the balance. So talk about the balance tree. First of all, we have the Eclipse, which we just talked about. When you use 2 Wrath, you get a stronger Starfire. When you use 2 Starfire, you get a stronger Wrath. But Starfire doesn't make the Wrath stronger because we have sacrificed that effect by basically having 160% more damage from Starfire on the primary target you cast it on. This damage is too high to, like, we don't need the Eclipse then from that. So just so you know that your Luna is dealing way more damage. I don't know why you cannot see the talent here, but it's, for some reason, it's gone. Then we have Shooting Stars. Every time Moonfire and Sunfire they deal damage, they have a chance to call down even like extra damage by like calling down like falling stars, dealing 70k damage and giving astral power, which is nice. Beside of that, we have Solar Beam. It's an interrupt spell, so an interrupt with 1 minute cooldown. When you use it on a target, it interrupts everyone, like basically interrupt them if they all casting spells, but it also silences them if they stand inside it for 8 seconds. Which is quite powerful. Then we have Solstice. During the first 6 seconds of Eclipse, your shooting stars fall 200% more often. So if you cast 2 Wrath, you will be getting this one here. You will be getting Eclipse. Now the first 6 seconds of Eclipse, the shooting stars are going to be falling even further. Like, you know, there's going to be even more stars coming all the time, which is quite nice. So yeah, you know, when you have dots on your targets, they have a chance to call down stars. the first 6 seconds of inside Eclipse from casting 2 Wrath is now summoning 200% more stars, or 200% more often stars is actually going to drop down. Then we have Warrior of Elune, which works perfectly together with Lunar Calling, where we're dealing 160% increased damage to Starfire, because this one here makes the next 3 Starfires instant cast and generate 30% extra astral power. You don't have to think about how to use this one here, because it's inside the single button rotation, so it's all automatically, and yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Then we also have Twin Moons, which is basically increasing the damage of Moonfire by 10%, but it also attacks another nearby enemy. So when you actually throw, where is it, Moonfire, you can see it actually attacks on 2, which is very nice. So it just kind of like helps you with your rotation, that you can just click on one mob. Even if there's like 5 mobs, it's like recommend you just click on one of them, and it will automatically try dot up as many as possible and go into your rotation. So yeah. Besides that, we have Wild Surge. Your Wrath and Starfire chance to critical strike is increased by 10, and they generate 2 additional astral power. So yeah, free crit. Why not? That's nice. Then we also have Nature's Grace. When Eclipse ends, or when you enter combat, you enter Dream State, reducing the cast time of your next 2 Starfire or Wrath by 40%. So to understand, when Eclipse ends, which is when I cast 2 Wrath spells, then I get into Eclipse for like 15, 13 seconds, whatever it was. What is it? 15 seconds. When it ends, we are getting these 2 stacks here called Dream State. As you can see here, we have this one right now called Dream State. Now you can see it ends, and now I have 2 stacks of Dream State. That basically means that my next 2 Starfires or Wrath is 40% faster, which is quite nice. But as it also said here, when you are out of when you enter combat, so either when Eclipse ends or when you enter combat, you get a Dream State, which is quite nice. So it's just, again, we are very focused on Starfire in this build here, so why not having a faster Starfire? That's quite nice. We also have Ethereal Kindling. Casting Starfall extends the duration of active Moonfires and Sunfires by 3 seconds up to 28 seconds. Also pretty nice to help our AoE burst in dungeons and delves. We also have Astral Smolder. Your Starfire and Wrath damage has 35% chance to cause the target to languish for an additionally 60% of your spell's damage over 6 seconds. So kind of have a chance to make them burn, which is quite nice. Then we also have Celestial Alignment. Celestial Body Alignment, maintaining both Eclipse and granting 10 haste for 12 seconds. This one here is basically being replaced by, because you can see here, if I take this one out here, it shows Chosen of Elune. So this one here we got this one here called a Celestial Alignment, which is, when you actually use it, it gives you both Eclipse. You can see you get both Eclipse Solar, you get both Eclipse Lunar. But it is replaced by Incarnation Chosen of Elune, and it also gives you 2 charges. So it's kind of like merging this one here together with this one here down in the bottom, and with both their effects. We're going to get down to this one later. But yeah, just so you know, this one still is there, but it is taken over by Incarnation Chosen of Elune, which is our only damage cooldown we have to use in this rotation, this spec here, which we're going to talk about in the rotation. We also have Umbral Intensity. Solar Eclipse increase the damage of Wrath by an additional 20. Lunar Eclipse increase Starfire damage by 15, and the damage it deals to nearby enemies by an additional 30. So, of course, the Solar Eclipse is never going to happen. It's never going to increase our Wrath, because we're never getting Eclipse from Lunar, except when we are casting Incarnation Chosen of Elune. So, of course, when we cast that one, it's going to give us the Eclipse that normally couldn't happen from Lunar, from Starfire. So technically it could still happen when we actually use Incarnation Chosen of Elune, which of course we're going to be using a lot in the rotation with it. And of course also it increases the damage of your Starfire. So both the Wrath and Starfire just increase from it, which is of course very nice. We also have this one here, Sunseeker Mushroom. Usually in old days, everyone was using Wild Mushroom, where you have to place mushrooms on the ground. But now the meta is using Sunseeker Mushroom, which I'm very happy for, because this one here is automatically doing it for you. So, Sunfire damage has a chance to grow a magical mushroom at your target location. After 1 second, the mushroom detonates and dealing 400k nature damage, and then additionally 200k over 10 seconds. Affected targets are slow by 20%, and it generates up to 20 astral power based on target's hit. So yeah, every time your Sunfire is dealing damage, it actually, like, all these three have now Sunfire, and you can see they randomly create mushrooms. There was one mushroom there that was like exploding, but now all of them has like a chance to keep like spawning mushrooms and detonate, which is quite nice, especially when before we had to use it manually, but now we have one that just cast it passively, which is very nice. Then we have Soul of the Forest. Solar Eclipse increase Solar Eclipse increase Raph's astral power duration by 60, and Lunar Eclipse increase Starfire's damage and astral power generation by 20. Each target hit beyond the first up to 60. And again, as we talked about, Starfire is of course not increasing Raph, but Raph is increasing Starfire, and of course we can get both of them when we actually use Incarnation. But yeah, again, this one here is just increasing our Eclipse even further. So increase the Eclipse, which is very nice. We also have Whirling Stars. Incarnation Chosen of a Loon cooldown is reduced by up to 100 seconds, and it has 2 charges, but its duration is reduced by 20 seconds. So true, we're giving up some duration from Incarnation Chosen a Loon, but the cooldown is reduced by how much was it? Like 100 seconds, which is almost 2 minutes, which is quite insane. There was, of course, also Orbital Strike, but everyone in the meta is using Whirling Stars, so we're not going to question that. We also have Cosmic Rapidity. Your Moonfire, Sunfire, and Stellar Flare deal damage 25% more frequently, so it's going to, tick even faster, tick even more, which is nice. We also have Umbral Embrace. Raph and Starfire have 20% chance to cause your next Raph or Starfire cast during an eclipse to become astral and deal 75 additional damage. Of course, this is going to happen mostly for the one we summon from Raph, since we cannot summon the one from Lunar. But we of course have both of them when we have chosen the Loon. And remember, this is a cooldown that it has a 1.7 minute cooldown, but it is there for 16 seconds and we can use it twice. Though, if you use it twice in a row, as you can see here, it actually doesn't stack. It still only has 16 seconds. So don't use Incarnation Chosen of a Loon in same time in a row. Wait till it's actually gone and then use the second one, or else you're just basically wasting it. But we will talk more about that in rotation as well. We also have Starlord. This one here is an important one. Star Surge and Starfall grant you 4% haste for 15 seconds, stack up to 3 times. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration. So basically every time you're spamming Star Surge and Starfall, you get more haste. Again, this is automatically handled by the single button rotation, so you don't have to worry about that. We also have Warning Twilight. When you have 3 periodic effects from your spells on a target, your damage and healing on them are increased by 6%. Very nice. Just more damage passively. We don't have to think about that. Every other Eclipse creates a Fury of a Loon at 25% effectiveness that follow your current target for 8 seconds. So that's quite nice. So every time we have a second Eclipse, which is going to happen quite often, it just spawns like, a Fury of a Loon. Which is why also Incarnation Chosen of a Loon has a chance to also spawn them, because when you use it, it's using Eclipse. So basically when you're clicking on Incarnation Chosen a Loon, you're also making Fury of a Loon. Very nice. Because I think a lot of people, when they use it, they just like, when I use my cooldown, why does a Fury of a Loon then come? Oh, because of this one here. Whenever you have like a second, create a second, every other Eclipse is basically creating a Fury of a Loon for 8 seconds. But remember, at a 25% effectiveness, so it's only going to deal 25% of the damage that a normal Fury of a Loon is dealing. We also have Balance All the Things. Entering Eclipse, increasing your critical strike chance with arcane or nature spells by 20%, decreasing by 2 every second. So whenever we go into like a Eclipse, it's going to increase a lot of damage and then it's slowly fading down. We also have Umbral Inspiration. Consuming an Umbral Embrace increase the damage of your Moonfire, Sunfire, Stellar Flare, Shooting Stars, and Starfall by 30% for 6 seconds. And Now you might be asking, okay, what was an Umbral Embrace? This one here. Wrathfire. Wrath and Starfire has a 20% chance to cause your next Wrath or Starfire cast during an Eclipse to become astral. So whenever this effect happens, you're getting this bonus effect here from this one here for 6 seconds. So yeah, whenever this happens, we get free damage over time. Very nice. We also have Rattle the Stars. Star Surge and Starfall deal 8% increased damage, and their cost is reduced by 10. Very nice. Then Harmony of the Heavens, Star Surge or Starfall increase your current Eclipse Arcane or Nature damage bonus by additional 2% up to 6%. So whenever we use Star Surge, which is our single target spender ability, or Starfall, our AoE spender ability, it just increases the damage of our Eclipse, which is again the one we get every time we use 2 times Wrath or when we use Incarnation. Then we have Incarnation Choosing of Elune, which of course is the upgrade version of Celestial Alignment. So Celestial Alignment just only gave you 10% haste. Incarnation Choosing of Elune, an improved Moonkin form that grant both Eclipse and any learned Celestial Alignment bonuses and 10% in critical strike chance. So now you get 10% haste, now you get 10% crit, but you also get both Eclipses. Last up to 16 seconds, you may shapeshift in and out of this improved movement. So that basically means when you actually pop it, you can actually still like go into bear form, go into Moonkin form, and it's still going to be active, which is very nice. And lastly, Radiant Moonlight. Fury of Elune deals 50% increased damage, and its cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds. So that means instead of having a 1 minute cooldown Fury of Elune, it's now 45 seconds, and it also increases the damage deal by 50%. Deals 50% increased damage. That is quite huge. And it's very nice because we have the other one that is reducing the cooldown of Fury of Elune by 2 seconds every time we use an arcane spell. So you're going to be using so many Fury of Elune all the time, spamming them out. But that was the talents. Let's move to the rotation. So when it comes to rotation, it's quite simple. You basically start your spells by pressing, like, you're of course just going to start pressing your single button rotation. And you might ask, when should I use my Incarnation? You have 2 choices. You can of course use it at the start, but if you really want to min-max, you are waiting till it actually casts Fury of Elune. So right after Fury of Elune, you use your Incarnation, which is your damage buff. So you start, of course, your rotation. It's gonna put up both like Sunfire, Moonfire. It's gonna cast a few spells, and now you can see it casts Fury of Elune, and then you use your first Incarnation. Only press Incarnation 1 time. Don't press 2 times, because it's not gonna, like, each of them is gonna give you 16 seconds. They are not stacking. So whenever your Incarnation is done now, then you use it 1 more time, and now you have it again 1 more time. So that is actually the rotation. So you press 1 until it uses Fury of Elune, and if you maybe ask, but the button is switching so fast, how can I see if it's actually, how can I actually see if it's using Fury of Elune? You will see, because it's the huge beam that is just like, beaming everything. So trust me. I mean, look at this. Is it ready? It's ready in 9 seconds. But it's basically the big beam that is like glowing down. So you can see now again, it's going to pop up the rotation, and now it used it. So you can see that very big beam there. Whenever that starts, you are using your Incarnation. So that is technically the entire rotation. You're pressing 1, whenever it uses Fury of Elune, you use your Incarnation, and yeah, that's the damage rotation, pretty much it. Whenever you are targeting multiple targets, it's automatically going to be using an AoE rotation, and whenever you are using your AoE rotation, single target rotation, it's automatically using your single target rotation. So you don't have to think like that. That's one of the hard things for me to play a DPS, because I never knew when to use like an AoE spell, single target spell. But it's automatically doing all that for you, so you don't have to think about it, which I find very nice. So you can see now it will automatically focus on a single button. It's going to focus on a single target rotation instead of a multiple target rotation when you're fighting one target. Just to end off the rotation part, I also briefly talked about we have a raid build, which I'm not going to go too much into, but the only difference you do when you are inside the raid build is that you need to have a macro. The macro you're going to be using is this one here, where we're going to say show tooltip, cast, no channeling, single button assistant. That's going to be used with the raid build. And you might be asking why, but that's because we have this cooldown here, convoke the spirits. What Convoke the Spirits is doing is that it basically throws, you can see here, it basically throws all these random spells here at your target. It both casts healing spells and damage spells. If you don't use the macro and you're using your single button rotation, and this one here is automatically used in your single button rotation, it will interrupt it. So instead of casting a lot of random spells over 4 seconds, you're actually going to be interrupting it after 1.8 seconds, which you don't want. But this is the main difference between the raid build and the Mythic Dungeon build, is that in this build here, we're going to be using a macro so we don't cancel Convoke the Spirits. This build here is also summoning trees, and whenever it summons the trees, you should be using your Celestial Alignment. So we don't have Incarnation in this one here, we just have Celestial Alignment, which you should be using after you have summoned your trees, or you could technically also use it at the start. But this build here is dealing way more damage single target wise. So this build here is definitely the one you would want to be using for single target, for raids. But anything else, we're going to be using the dungeon build. So quickly to finish off the rotation, again, as I talked about, you spam 1 in the rotation whenever you're casting Fury Balloon or your trees, depending on if you're running your dungeon build or raid build. If Fury Balloon gets cast, if your trees get cast, then we use either Incarnation, or in the raid build it was using Celestial. So yeah, keep pressing 1 until you use your big cooldown, either Fury Balloon or trees, and then you use your number 2. Then on number 3 we have a quick self-healing. Basically regrowth, heals a lot and also over time. It's just like a single time, well, it's heals and heals over time. Number 4 is our interrupt. Has a long cooldown, 1 minute cooldown, but that's because it's also silencing for 8 seconds after that. Number 5 we have entangling roots, basically keeping the target locked for 1 minute, well actually 30 seconds. So for 30 seconds they cannot move. Number 6, you have a bounce ability, for example, this wild charge. What you could use it for is, for example, if you jump down, you could use 6 now, and you're not going to get full damage. Well, at least very small full damage. Then on the mouse button up here, we have remove all curse and poison effects. So very nice in a dungeon or delve. You can click on someone and remove the curse or poison on them to help out. Then we have Barskin, which is reducing all damage you take by 30%. Reduce all damage you take by 30%, increase healing received by 20%, and preventing delaying on spell cast. Very nice. So yeah, damage. Then we also had Nature's Vigil, which is the spell where every time you use single target abilities, so when you actually use it, then all your single target abilities now is going to heal random targets. So as you can see, we're popping out healings randomly to everyone around us, which is very nice. So if you can see that in your group, in your Mythic Dungeon, your dungeon, that a lot of people is missing health, pop this one here and it's just going to be healing like a lot of random people, which is quite nice. We also have Stampeding Roar, makes everyone running faster, very nice. We also have Innovate, which is you can throw in a healer and then for 8 seconds they're not going to be using any mana, also very nice. We also have Typhoon, which is a spell you use where you're pushing everyone in front of you, you push them. So imagine you have 5 mobs in front of you and they're casting spells, then you can push them and interrupt them casting their spells. If you, for example, if the tank is pulling a lot of mobs and you want to make sure that you can your Fury Balloon is attacking all the targets at the same time, because they're standing close, you can use Vortex, which is this one here. It will kind of make them stand in here, because every time they run out, they will be pulled back in. But it can just help your rotation, it can help you damage to deal more damage because they're standing together with Fury Balloon. And another Mass Interrupt, Incapacitating Roar. Basically stunning them all, or not stunning them, but making them kind of blinded for 3 seconds. I believe, yeah, 3 seconds. So you have 3 spells you can use to interrupt an AoE. You have your Solar Beam, you have your Typhoon, and you have your Incapacitating Roar. So people in dungeons are gonna love you because you can keep interrupting so much. We of course also have dash, where we go into cat form, run very fast. We also have soothe, which can be very effective because it basically removes dispelling enrage effects. So if you're against a mob, a boss, or something like that that has an enrage effect, of course not the enrage effects and raids, but like, you know, if you're against a mob where they have an enrage effect, you can actually remove that enrage effect and make them not deal that much damage. We also have prowl, which is our stealth ability. For that one, I'm using a macro, which is super efficiency. It basically, you can spam the button, and normally if you spam prowl, it will keep going in of stealth and out of stealth, in of stealth, out of stealth. This one here is only using prowl if you are out of stealth. So even if I press this and spam it inside stealth, it's not gonna go out of stealth, which I find super useful. So this one here is very nice for like going very fast into stealth, and you spam the button without fearing that you're actually going to go out of it again. Then we also have Mark of the Wild, which is our buff we're using. The buff that is giving everyone 3% versatility. Of course, you have to cast that every time you get into a group, because I mean 3% versatility is very nice. You have a normal rest. If someone dies and you're out of combat, you can rest them. And you have a combat rest where if someone dies in combat, you can get them back from death. It has a 10-minute cooldown. If someone else uses a combat rest like a warlock or paladin, you have a shared cooldown and your cooldown will also activate. That's the rotation. All right, let's go to the gameplay section where we're going to be seeing me play a dungeon with this spec here. So here we go. Our first dungeon. Well, not first dungeon. I've played a lot of balance, but still, we have dungeon hunt here, so you can see the single button rotation is automatically asking to go into Moonkin form. And we're gonna stand still because the first two abilities the thing is, like, when you start, the first two abilities gonna be using will be instant cast. So you always know it's gonna be casting Sun Fury, it's always gonna be casting Moonfire. So you can of course just run while you're casting those two. Then it's going to be using 2 Wrath for the Eclipse and basically dropping some of your cooldowns now. And there we go, getting the tank on. Spamming 1 again. Moving out. There you go. Very good damage from the spells. Now this time here. Since the boss is not gonna live very long, I'm gonna be using Carnation for the first. Like, I'm gonna use it from the start. Usually I would wait for Fury of Balloon to actually activate. But since we are... what's it called? Since we are anyway going to fight against the boss that's gonna die very quickly, we just used it at the start. As you can see on that boss there, the things I had that dealt most damage was Star Surge, and then Fury of Balloon, and then Starfire. So very, very, very arcane focused spec. Alright, skipping ahead to the boss fight, since that's like way too long to just like run around and find those mobs. Here the rotation is automatically going to be using the cleave rotation. So you don't even have to think about like using cleave spells, because it's all going to be inside the single button rotation. So we're basically just waiting for the mobs to be casted. The tank is going to take aggro of them. There we go. And we're going to wait till the loon is going to be cast, and now we're going to use our cooldown and do big damage. There we go. Of course, I know this is a low dungeon, and I mean, we don't have the best gear, so that's why we're kind of doing this level here. I know a lot of people have been requesting me to do like higher content. The thing is, this build here is going to be totally fine for whatever high content you're doing. Like, this build here is for anything. Like, it's for Mythic 10, it's for normal, it's for heroic, it's for time walking. It's a good build for all around. I just don't have the gear and the time for actually being able to, for example, go into a +10 to show you that instead. Or else I wouldn't be able to get all these guys rolling out. So I guess you have to trust me on my word that it's definitely going to be working fine for you, this guide here, on a +10 as well. It's just different content. But as you can see, I'm just pressing 1 and it used Furry Balloon there and it dealt a lot of damage. And we're doing really good damage. Again, you always know that the first 2 spells is instant cast spells. It's always going to be Moonfire. It's always going to be, what's it called? Sunfire. And then after that, it's going to be starting using its own rotation. If you switch target in the middle of combat, it will then restart, like, you know, dotting up your dots. So you can see whenever I click on a new target, it wants to like, this is pretty cool. Like every time you click on a new target, it automatically knows which debuff haven't you gotten. Since we know the boss is going to be alive for a very short time again, I'm just going to be using my buff, my inclination from the start. You can see how much more damage we did this time here compared to before, because we just used it from the start. Oh, okay, he wants to go that way. You don't want to go that way, okay. And remember to always use your Mark of the Wild so everyone gets 3% more versatility for an hour.
So persistent. For you, a reward. Witness the unparalleled wonder of transformation.
One of the smaller annoying things is that, of course, now we're going to have a boss fight. And it uses all my cooldowns. See, that's the thing, like with single button assistant, you can, of course, you cannot control when it's supposed to use what. So now, just before the boss, it already used 2 of my cooldowns, which, of course, is a bit annoying, because I, of course, wanted to have most damage on the boss. But I guess we just have to live without those 2 cooldowns. So again, I started with using Incarnation because I know the boss is not gonna survive that long, and still did pretty well damage. I mean, we almost like had a 2 million DPS through the dungeon, which is fine when you think about the shitty gear I have at this Druid here. So yeah, that was the gameplay preview. I hope you enjoyed this guide. Again, the main build we have talked about in this video is the dungeon build, the one you're gonna use for all content except raid. And then of course we also have the raid build, which you can use for like, yeah, raiding for more single target damage. So anything else you're gonna play in the game, you're gonna use the dungeon build, and then when you go into raid, you're gonna be using the raid build, where the only difference in the raid build is we're gonna use that macro so we don't cancel the convoke spell. But that was pretty much everything. Again, if you want to have the talents, the talents, the UI, you can always go to my Discord. There will be an import string for both the talents and the UI. And that's pretty much it. In case you want to support the channel even further for watching and subscribing, feel free to become a YouTube member. You will be getting behind the scenes stuff, like some vlogs, and your name is also going to be credited in the end of the video. So far we are on 6 members, which I really appreciate you all. So thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next single button guide.